All right, this workshop's going to be on percentages and how to solve equations with percentages. Most of the instructors teach two ways, one doing it with an equation, and another way doing it with proportions. I'm going to stick with proportions because they are easier, and I'll show you why. You never have to move the decimal place when you're dealing with proportions. You never have to worry about, well, where does my decimal go? Whatever your answer is with the proportion, that's the answer that you get. So let's work through some of these problems, and I'll show you that it's basically the same process every single time, no matter what problem you're given, and go from there. On the back of the cover page, there is some formulas. But notice they're really the same. You're really using the same proportion over and over and over again. We're going to use this principle of the percent being over 100 is equal to the part over the whole. And notice that that same relationship shows up no matter what type of problem we're doing. Whether it's involving is and of, tax, tips, commissions, discounts, it's the same setup. So we're going to go through a couple problems of each type and show you that the setup is exactly the same and work through those. We may not be able to solve all of them, but we will be able to set up all or most of them. The setup is usually the hard part, don't you agree? The setup is harder, solving it is not so bad. It's just, where do I put my numbers, where do I put this? So we'll work on that primarily, and we'll solve as many as we can. All right, so the first set of problems says problems involving parts and wholes. It says of the 305 million people in the United States, 140.3 million take at least one type of prescription drug per day. What percent take at least one type of prescription drug per day? Well, let's think about it as this relationship here. Percent over 100 is equal to the part over the whole. What are we looking for? Percent. Our percent is what we're looking for. That's where our unknown, our variable, will go. And in this case, what's the whole amount? What's the total amount, and what is the part? So of those 2 million figures given there, which one is the whole and which one's the part?
305 is the whole.
Right. The total population, the whole part of the population is 305 million. We don't have to write 305,000,000. Both of our measurements are given in millions, so we can just keep the numbers as they are. So that must mean that part is 140.3. How do I solve that? Well, there's a phrase at the bottom of the back page, or the bottom of the first page on the back. To solve, we just cross multiply and divide. What you want to do is multiply the two numbers, the diagonal that has the numbers in them. So we need to go 100 times 140.3. And if I multiply that, what do I end up getting? So you multiply and then divide by the number that's on the diagonal with the x. So this diagonal involves the x, so you're going to divide by 305. And whatever you get when you divide that number is your answer. You don't have to worry about moving decimals, worrying about whether I have the right answer. So 305. How many times can that go into 1403? Yes. 4 times 5 is 0. 2. 1. And if I subtract that, I get 1830. And then when I take 305 and divide it into 1830, it goes in there evenly 6 times. 6 times 5 is 0. And 3. So my answer, since we were looking for a percent, is whatever this number is right here. My answer is 46%. You don't have to worry about moving the decimal 2 places to the left. Remembering that it's 2 places to the left or the right. Just whatever that division is, that is your answer. Let's try another one. The next one says, the average person expels 200 milliliters of water per day by sweating. This is 8% of the total output of water from the body. How much is the total output of water? So we have the same setup again. So what are we looking for? The total, right? It even says that. Well, how much is the total output of water? So that's the whole. That's our unknown. What's our percentage given in the problem?
1%.
And we know what the percentage is. It's 8. That's always over 100. So the part has to be 200. To solve, cross multiply and divide. Cross multiply the diagonal with your number. So what's 200 times 100? Well, what's 1 times 2?
2.
And then I have 4 zeros.
20,000. Or 2,000.
20,000. And then we're going to divide that by the diagonal that has the x. So divide that by 8. And whatever that is will be your answer. 2 times 8 is 16. 8 goes in 45 times. And I'm just left with zeros. It's just going to be 0 and 0. So you should end up getting 2,500. And it is a word problem, so we have to answer it something that makes sense. So 2,500 milliliters. Because that's what our units of measurement were given out. Question?
We cross multiply, right?
100 times 200 is 20,000. And then you divide that by whatever number is on the diagonal of the x. The number that's on the diagonal of the x is the 8. That's what we're dividing by. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. It's a very interactive session. Hopefully. So you should have gotten 2,500 milliliters on that one. Okay. Try setting up the third one. Let's talk through that. In 2007, the starting salary for a neurologist was approximately 64.5% of that of an anesthesiologist. The beginning salary for an anesthesiologist was $275,000. What was the beginning salary for a neurologist? All right, so a lot of information, but we can still use that same setup. Am I given a percentage?
Yeah.
And it was 64.5, right?
Yes.
Don't worry about the decimal. We can still work with that in the setup. So the 275,000, is that the part or the whole? It's the whole, right? Because the neurologist is the part of the anesthesiologist's salary. So 275,000 would go on the whole. And then our unknown is how much the neurologist makes. So how would I solve that? Cross multiply? What am I going to cross multiply?
64.5 times 275,000.
multiply that. And then whatever answer that is, we're going to divide that by what? 100. So somebody multiply 675,000 times 64.5 and tell me what we get.
You don't, you don't move your decimal yet, right?
You don't. If you're using the proportion, you never have to move your decimal. That's the nice thing about using it. You just put it in as is.
$17,737,500.
Again?
177,375,500.
All right. Anybody else get that? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Now I'll show you a little trick on division as well. That's gonna suck, right? Take 100. If you have two numbers that end with zeros, you can cancel out the zeros. So what's 1 into anything? Itself. So that's basically 177,375, right? There you go, there's your answer. Didn't even have to divide it. If you have two numbers when you're dividing, as long as you have zeros there, cancel out the same amount. As long as you're doing the same thing inside the house as you're doing outside, you're good to go. Nice little trick, comes in handy sometimes. So I don't want to divide 100 into 17 million. I got better things to do with my time, right? So we've gone through and solved some of these. Just as far as a time saver, I want to get through some of the other ones and at least set them up. We can come back and solve some of them, but let's at least set the next few examples up, and then we can come back and solve them later if we have some time. Because that's the process that we're going to use, the cross multiplicate, divide. You can use that every single time. The next set of problems deals with is and of. And going back to the back of that first sheet, you use the same setup, but instead you use is over of. So it says 24% of what is 16.8? Are they giving us a percentage?
24%.
Right, they say 24%. Even though it doesn't have the whole symbol there, it does say percent. Of what is 16.8? Which part did they give us? Did they give us the is, or did they give us the of?
The is.
Is 16.8. Of what? That's what we don't know.
You did that wrong.
Is over, think of an alphabetical order. I before O. Now we're not actually going to physically solve that. There's that's who. So somebody tell me how we would solve it. We're not actually going to show how we're solving it, but just
Cross multiply.
Cross multiply what?
100 times 16.8.
Right, and then we're going to take that number and divide it by
24.
Okay. So let's try another one. Everybody good with this one? Try setting up the next one. So the next one says 42 is what percent of 30? Are we given a percentage?
No.
No, so that's our unknown. 42 is what percent of 30? So where do the 42 and 30 go?
42 over 30.
Exactly. So as far as solving, what would I do?
Cross multiply 100 times 42 and x times 30.
Okay, so I've got 42 times 100, and then I'm going to divide it by 30. Okay. So essentially you end up with 42 times 100 is 4,200.
Mm-hmm.
Could I use my zero trick on this one?
Yes.
Yes. I could make it a smaller problem. I could really make it 3 into 420, make the number a little bit smaller. It'll work out just the same no matter which way you do it. Yes, sir.
What are we working from, like, these problems?
We are working from the handout that's up there about food.
Midterm?
No, the,
There's no,
Here you go.
the next one says, what is 10.5% of 84? Don't let the fraction fool you. 10.5% is the same thing as what as a decimal?
10.5.
10.5. Right, we can put 10.5, it means the same thing. 10.5%. It's always over 100. What's going to go over here as far as my is and of?
X or 84.
Right. It says of 54, so that's the of.
No, 84.
84, thank you. And once again, how would I solve that? What would I multiply together?
Let's multiply 10.5 times 84.
Right, and then I'm going to take that number and divide it by
100.
100. And I may be able to use my zero trick there. Right? So those are the is and of problems. Let's move to problems involving tax. Let me get on this, So we can use our same proportion setup, percent over 100, and then going back to those formulas on the back of that first page, it's the tax, or the sales tax, over the total sale. So it says, in a certain state, a sales tax of $453.60 is collected on the purchase of a used car for $7,560. What is the sales tax rate? Rate is the same as percentage. So if you see the word rate, they're asking for the percentage. So where should my variable go in this proportion? Right, they're asking for the rate, the sales tax rate. That means percentage, the sales tax percentage. That's our unknown. Then using the setup, what was the tax?
$453.60.
And the total sale?
$7,560.
So that would go on the bottom. See how the setup is really, you can remember the setup and it works for every single type of problem. It's a lot easier than the equations, I think. So how did I solve that? Multiply what?
53, 60, 100, and then divide by 7.
Exactly. Multiply 100 times 453.60. Whatever that result is, divided by 7,560. And once again, you might be able to use that zero trick again. Okay? So let's try setting up the next one. The sales tax rate in New Mexico is 5%. How much sales tax would be charged on a pair of sunglasses that sells for $129.95? Then it asks a separate question, what is the total price? So we're going to still be able to use our proportion, just at the end we have to do a little bit more work. Let's see if it makes sense. The sales tax rate is 5%, so where should that 5 go?
5 over 100.
5 over 100.
And then X.
Right. We don't know what the sales tax is, right? That's what we're looking for. So that's where our unknown is. And then our total sale.
$129.95.
Right. Now it's asking what the total price is. So do you agree that whenever we find the tax, we'll just add that to the price. That'll tell us how much we're going to pay for it. That makes sense, right? We see that it's still every day.
Right.
So let's go ahead and solve this one because it's a little bit different from the rest. We have to do one more step. What am I going to multiply here?
$129.95 times 5.
Okay. Let's do that.
6.
649.75.
Okay, 649.75. And then I'm going to take that, and I'm going to divide that by 100.
So move it over 2 spots.
Yeah. When you're dividing by 100, you can't use the zero trick here. But when you divide by 100, you just move the decimal 2 places over. Okay. That's a trick we can use. Let's work this. Let's work it out the long way now, in case you don't remember that trick. 100 goes into 649 how many times?
6.
6. 6 times 100 is 600. That leaves us with 4,000 or 449, and then we'll just drop a 7. How many times can 100 go into 497?
400. I'm sorry, 4.
Right. And we want to put our decimal above. Comes right above the number we're dividing. 4 times 100 is 400. Drop that 5 down. How many times can 100 go into 975?
9.
9 times. So it's going to be 975. Now, we're dealing with a price here, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a dollar and cents, but we really need to know the number right after to see if we need to round that up or not.
Right.
So, drop a 0. So how many times can 100 go into 750?
7.
7 times. 7 times 100 is 700. And we're left over with 50. Now the thing is, what would this be as a price?
650.
650. How did we get that?
Because 7 is greater than 5. And so
Right.
you have to
So
round.
$6.49, that 7's going to round that up, which turns this into 650. So $6.50. Notice, we were talking about that trick earlier. Notice the decimal just moved 2 places over, and it did, right? It ended up between the 6 and the 4. So if you remember that trick, go for it. If not, we can always
That's
do the
only
1.
only when it's 100.
It has to be 1 with zeros behind it. How many zeros tells you how many places you need. So we found the sales tax, but the last question says, what is the total price? So how can I get my total price?
You have the $129.95 plus the $6.50.
All right, so you just add those together. Remember, when you're adding, you have to make sure that your decimals line up. So it's 5, 4, 1, 6. So $136.45.
I don't understand about moving the decimal again.
When you're dividing by 100, or any 1 with however many zeros, it basically just moves the decimal 2 places, or however many places you have here. The thing is, I did it the long way. I didn't use that shortcut, right? But notice that it did end up moving. It was behind the 9, and then it ended up moving 2 places there. Right. I did work it out a long way. I didn't use the shortcut, but it did go that way. As an aside, if I have 357.3, some number like that, if I divide that by 10, how many zeros do I have after the 1?
1.
1. Your decimal moves 1 place. If I have 357.3 and divide by 100, how many zeros do I have? Your decimal moves 2 places. So it ended up being 3.573. If I have 357.3 divided by 1,000, I would move it 3 places. So it's a trick you can use. I mean, if you want to stick along, that's fine. But you should notice that our decimal did move 2 places from where it originally was. Right? It was originally between the 9 and the 7.
But the number always has to be a 1 in front of the zeros.
Yes. That's the only time you can use it. That's the only time you can use that 0 trick too. It has to be 1 and 0. with the tax. The sales tax on the purchase of a new fishing boat is $112, and the sales tax rate is 2%. What is the purchase price? The price before the tax was added of the fishing boat. I'm going to go someplace where the tax rate is 2%.
Right?
So 2%, obviously the 2 is going to go with the percentage. All right. Do we have the tax or do we have the total sale?
We have the tax.
We have the tax, $112, which means we don't know the original price of the boat. Well, we can find it, right? How would I solve that?
Could,
Cross multiply.
Cross multiply, what am I cross multiplying?
2x times 100. Well, 100 is 100 and 112.
Yeah, multiply 100 times 112, and then you're going to divide that number by 2, whatever number's on the diagonal of the x.
So in that instance, do you need the decimal 2 times?
Oh, got 100, well, if you're multiplying, yeah.
Divided.
Well, but we're dividing by 2, right? So why would we move the decimal? Remember, it's only when you divide by 1 with zeros.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? The last one we had, we were dividing by 100, so we can do that. But this one's just 2, so just do the normal division. Okay. Should have 5,600. I don't know if anybody's worked that out yet.
56.
5,600?
We can divide by 9.
Close enough for government purposes. Yeah, 5,600. All right, so let's move to another kind of real world situation. Talking about tips. You know, go out to eat or leave a tip at a restaurant or drink the distinct that serves adult beverages. All right. So it says, after a meal at a local restaurant, John leaves a 20% tip on a meal that costs $75 before the tip for him and his 2 friends. What was the amount of the tip? What was the total cost of the meal? So once again, we can use this same setup, except this time we're using the tip as part of the entire sale of the entire meal price. So what information are they giving us here? Are they giving us a tip percent? And what is that? 20%? John and his friends got their service, I guess? All right. Now the meal costs $75 before the tip. So where's that $75 going to go? Bottom. Right? That's the whole part of the meal. So what we don't know is how much tip he left. So what would I do to solve this one? Bless you.
cross multiply and divide.
Cross multiply and divide. 20 times 75.
150 plus another 0.
Plus another 0, 1,500. Yep. And I'm going to divide that by. Okay, I'm going to use my 0 sheet there, right? So can I eliminate my zeros? I got 2 on the inside, 2 on the outside. So what's my answer? 15.
And then you add that to 75.
Yep. They did ask how much tip was left. They also asked what was the total price of the meal with the tip. So the meal cost $75. I had a $15 tip. So how much is the total meal?
$90.
$90. So the total is the 75 originally plus the tip. Apparently, John has 2 loose years for friends. Right. Did it go on that one? But notice the setup is the same. It's the same process over and over and over again. It's the same setup. Okay, so let's try another one. Diners frequently add a 50% tip when charging a meal to a credit card. What would the cost of a meal without tip be if a tip of $2.70 is added to the meal? Okay, so let's erase this information and see if we can't plug this in. Are they giving us a percentage?
Yes.
Yes. 15. Are they giving us the tip, or are they giving us the total cost of the meal? They're giving us the 2.70. What we don't know is how much the meal costs before the tip. Right, so how did I solve that? Cross multiply. 2.7 times 100. This is the trick where you can move the decimal. You can multiply by 2 zeros. So it would be 270, right? 100 times 2.7 is 270. And then I would divide that by the diagonal of the x, not 15. And whatever that is, was the cost of the meal originally.
Eight.
15 can go in there one time.
Be 18 something.
How many times can 15 go into 120? 8. And 8 times 15 is exactly 120. So what was the cost of the meal before the tip? $18, that's right. Questions? All right, cross multiply 100 times 2.7. That gives me 270. And then divide it by 15. What was that?
Why I get 2,700?
Hmm?
I get like 2,700. You just cross that 0 out?
Well, you're multiplying, so you can't cross zeros out. You multiply by 100, that will move the decimal 2 places, which gives you 270. But I've got 3 zeros, right? And then I've got 1 times 7, 1 times 2. And then how many decimal places do I have? So just 270. So let's set up that last one. For a party of 8 or more, some restaurants add an 18% gratuity to the bill or tip. What is the total amount charged for a party of 10 if the cost of the meal without tip is $195? So they're giving us some information. Now they're saying for parties of 8 or more. So there was a party of 10. Is that 8 or more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that the restaurant did charge a gratuity of 18%. So we know 18% is our percentage. Did they give us the tip, or did they give us the total amount of the meal? Total amount of the meal. $695. That means we're looking for the tip. And that's what they're asking for. They're saying, what is the total amount of charge for the party of 10 if the cost of the meal without tip? $895. So we need to find the tip and then add that to the total price of the meal to find the total. All right. So how am I going to solve that?
Cross multiplying divide.
Cross multiplying. What am I cross multiplying?
18 and 195.
18 times 195. I'm sure someone's already worked that out for me. I'm hoping.
3510.
3510. And what am I going to do with that number? Divided by 195. Zero. 195 goes in there.
About 8 times. Let me see.
Supposed to divide it by 100. 195.
500.
Oh, thank you. It's like, wait a minute. All right, so let's go back. Yeah, just test me on. Just test me.
We do that.
3510, and I'm going to divide that by the diagonal with the x, which in this case is 100. Can I use my zero trick to make the numbers a little bit smaller? Yes. I can cross out one of the zeros. So I'm really just taking 10 into 351. Now if you remember the trick when you're dividing by numbers 1 and then the zeros, you know that's just going to move at one decimal place. It'll end up being 35.1. But let's work it out the long way. How many times can 10 go into 35? 3. How many times can 10 go into 51?
5.
5. And then how many times can 10 go into 10?
1.
Now we did have to add a spot, so we have to put a decimal there. So 35.1, and we're talking about prices here, so how much is that as a dollar amount?
10 cents.
That's 10 cents, so $35.10. That's the tip. So what would the total price of my meal be? Add the price of the meal, $195. And when you add that together, you do end up getting $230.10.
It's not bad for 10 people.
No, it's not. As long as checks are split. You don't want three pancakes like that. All right. Same setup. Right? You can still use that cross multiply and divide. You can still use that for every single kind of problem. So let's try some problems involving commissions. Let's at least set these up because we are running a little bit behind. Maybe cover a couple out of each one. But I do want to get to the last ones involving percent increase or decrease because those are a little bit different. Not too bad. So on commissions. The salesperson, when they work off commission, they're getting a part of their total sales. So the first one says Jane earns $753.50 selling $6,850 worth of televisions. What was her commission rate? Remember, rate means percentage in this case. So what is the piece we don't have?
Right there, the X. There, yeah.
So we had to have been given her commissions and her total sales. So what did she commission?
753.50.
Okay. And her total sales were 68.50. So to solve, cross multiply and divide. 100 times 753.50, and then divide that by 68.50. You'll be able to use some of those zero tricks again, but no matter which way you do it, it's still going to end up giving you the same answer. Let's set up the next one. An insurance salesperson receives 7% commission if $42,000 worth of life insurance is sold. What is the commission? So what part are we missing here? We're given a percentage, right? And 7%. And somebody said we're missing the commission, how much the salesperson got. So that's our unknown. And then our total sales for that salesperson were 42,000. So someone tell me real quick, how would I solve that? What would I multiply by? What would I divide by?
7 times 42,000 divided by 100.
I know I'm being a dead horse, but it's the same process over and over and over again.
Or 420 times 7. If you want to get 1% times 7.
Yeah. You will be able to use the zero tricks on that one. Okay. The last one says a real estate agent's commission rate is 7%. She receives a commission of $12,950 from the sale of a home. How much did the home sell for? So what part are we missing there?
The total
The
sales.
total sales, right? We know what the commission was. It was $12,950. We just don't know what the total sale of the house was. So that's where our unknown goes. So once again, cross multiply 100 times 12,950, whatever that number is, divided by 7, and there's your answer. What about the discounts? Problems involving discounts. Again, very similar setup, just different information. Discount over the original price. So, the first one says an air conditioner has a marked price of $350. It is placed on sale at 15% off. What are the discount and the sale price? So, do we know what the percentage is? It is 15%. Do we know what the discount is? No, that's what we're looking for. When it says marked price, that's the original price. That's the $350. Cross multiply and divide. 15 times 350. Let's do that real quick. Thanks very much. 250, right? And then if I divide that by
100.
100,
52.50.
you can use the zero trick. Right. Another way, I'm dividing by 1 with 2 zeros, so my decimal would move 2 places. And if you work it out the long way, you're still going to get the same answer. $52.50. Now that's the discount. How would I find the sale price?
Added to
We would subtract it because it's a discount. Because the original price, right? If it's a discount, you don't want to pay more than the original price. So I need to subtract 52.50 from the original price. And that'll give me my sale price. So 0 minus 0, 0. I have to do some borrowing here though. 5, 7. $297.50. So to find a discount, we're using the same process again, cross multiply and divide. But they did ask for the sale price, so we have to take it one step further. We have to subtract that discount from the original price. All right, very similar to when they were asking what was the total price of the meal. We'd have to add the tip to the meal. Where as it's a discount, you would subtract it from the original price. The next one's a little tricky. They say a price of a fax machine is marked down from $305 to $262.30. What is the rate of the discount? So, do I know what my percentage is? No. That's my unknown. Do I know what my discount is? Be careful here.
Yes.
Yeah, the discount's going to be the difference in the original price and the sale price. So we've got to do that first. We aren't given the discount directly, but we can find it. So 305 minus 262. 30. I'll work through all that. It should be 30. Should be 42.70. Let me check it quick. 42.70 when we do that subtraction. Yeah.
That'll be a 3, won't it? No, never mind. I'm wrong because you'll need to mark down the 0.
Yeah, I believe it's 42.70.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the discount. We did have to do a little work to get there, but we are able to find it. And then what's the original price? 305. 305, right? The other one was the sale price. So how would I solve that? We'll just talk through this one and then get to the next one and set it up. Cross multiply 100 times 42.7, and then I'm going to divide by 305. So once again, we have to do a little bit of work to find some of the information, but notice the process for solving it is exactly the same.
It's like the same setup as a decrease, right? A decrease problem?
Percent increase and decrease, yeah. I'll try to set a couple of those up. A living room furniture set was discounted by 30%. The discount on the set came to $540. What was the original price of the furniture set? So the living room furniture set was discounted by 30%. So we know the percentage is 30. The discount came to 540, so that has to go in place of the discount. What was the original price on the furniture?
$54,000 divided by 30.
Exactly. 100 times 540 is 54,000. Remember when I'm multiplying with zeros, I just add the zeros to it. 1 times 54 plus the 3 zeros. And I can divide that by,
Take off the zero in this.
I could take off, my two numbers do end in 0, so I could take off 1 in the zeros. And then divide that by 3.
That's 17. Yeah.
When you do divide that, you will end up getting $1,800, and that's the original price. $1,800. So how can I get my sale price?
Subtract the discount.
Subtract the discount, correct. They gave us the discount at the beginning, so I could just subtract 540. And when you do that, you should end up with $1,260. Pretty good deal. Let's at least try to set up one. I think a class is probably waiting ready to get in here. Let's try 1% increase and decrease, at least set it up, and show you that it's very similar to this discount problem that we just did. Except in this case, it's going to be the difference over the original. A person on a diet goes from a weight of 160 pounds to a weight of 136 pounds. What is the percent of decrease? Are we given the percentage?
No.
Nope, that's our unknown. They go from a weight of 160 to 136. So how can I find the difference between those?
1.
Just subtract it. And when you subtract those, you do get 24. And then what was the original weight?
160.
160. And then you cross multiply and divide. Right? So even if it says percent increase and decrease, you can still use that same setup. Sure. The difference over the original. We'll stop it there. If you need any help, please stop by the math lab. I'll be more than happy to show you how to set up the rest of them and help you solve some of the ones that we didn't get to. But I know there's another class about to come in. We've got to give up the room.